So we're here today with Akam. So Akam, welcome.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you for coming in on what is actually looking to be a really beautiful sunny day. So thanks for taking the time to come and say hello.
Yep.
So tell us first of all, what is it that you do for a job?
So I'm a motion design artist and I kind of animate through a design perspective and design mindset. So I kind of take client briefs, usually something for social media or something that explains a business product and kind of animate that for them and kind of explain that for them, yeah.
Yeah, so that sounds like a really fun job, but something that I personally wouldn't even know where to start with.
Right.
So how did you kind of start with an interest in that? How did you get into it all?
Well, I think for most people that kind of get into it, it's just kind of like an odd thing that kind of just rolls up and then it just happens and then suddenly you're doing motion design. But yeah, for me it was when I was 14 or 13, my friend was running a whole YouTube channel thing, little fun thing for himself, and he was like, "Oh, could you make me a little intro?" And I was like, I could try. I don't know how. I've never done anything creative, so I'll try it. And I tried it, and then I found myself just doing it constantly. And then suddenly I was the hobby just turned into a sort of a job.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, well now I need to get new hobbies because this hobby's just become my job at this point. But yeah, that's how I got into it.
Oh, that's amazing. Sometimes I think when things happen organically like that, you know, start out as a hobby and then they transition and it becomes a career, it's easy to kind of lose the love for it because you're then having to put pressure on yourself to make money doing this. Have you found that, or do you still love it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I found that happens quite a bit as well. But the important thing with motion design is to have some sort of passion projects on the side. Yeah. So you're always going to be doing what the client wants because the client comes first, and you always want to kind of market towards the client. Mm-hmm. But if you're doing projects for yourself, if you're doing kind of passion projects and trying to create short films for yourself for your own ideas, because it's animation at the end of the day, so you can do whatever you want to do as long as you have the time. Yeah. So yeah, it's important to just freshen your mind and maybe even take a step back and take a rest.
Yeah, amazing. So are you self-employed then?
Yeah.
And how have you found that? Has the pandemic affected your work at all?
Well, for me, I actually was in the army. So I was in Finland in the army. Okay. And I moved over back to England because I originally was born in Finland. Okay. And I went back for the army and then came back. But during the pandemic, I was still there. And when I came back, I sort of just kind of grew into the freelance thing again. Yeah. Just during the pandemic. So for me, I don't really know the difference because for me it just started like this. But I definitely think it's made remote jobs easier.
Definitely.
Yeah. So things that kind of weren't remote at first, now you can apply to a studio and work with a studio in America or Canada. Absolutely. You know, and you know, I've worked with people from like Lebanon, from Australia, and you know, from just all over the world, and it's such a nice thing to just be able to do that from your own room.
Definitely. Yeah. It's definitely made the world smaller in a sense because, as you say, it's a Zoom call away and you can be on the phone with someone in Australia.
Exactly, yeah.
Which is, I suppose when you look at it from that point of view, it is really exciting.
Yeah, definitely. And for motion design, it's been quite a good thing because everything's kind of virtual. Yeah. And you see motion design everywhere. You see it on social media when you're scrolling. You see it on kind of your user interface on your phone. You see it on YouTube constantly. You see it on Vimeo. You see it on TV. And then you're going to start seeing it on like augmented reality and virtual reality. So it'll probably come to a point where the four walls in your room are going to be able to, like, you can put anything on it and make it animated. Yeah, definitely. So it's a very exciting time.
Yeah, it is. And do you ever worry at all that, because I think it all moves so fast, technology is always expanding. Right. Do you ever think, okay, I need to constantly keep up with the changes and the progress and be the best at what you do? Right. There must be pressure.
Yeah, there's a little bit of pressure, but I think because we're all so connected and we have so much information on the internet, like just at our fingertips, that it's just so easy to just like pick it up again. And if something new comes along, it's more so exciting than scary to me. Yeah. I'm just excited to explore new kind kind of techniques and programs and softwares.
Wow, I mean, it's really inspiring to hear about your story and things. So you were in the army, so I'm just going to briefly touch on that.
Yeah.
So you were in the army, and then what a big transition. So
Right.
what was it at that, like, you know, that made you come over here and, and start the whole process?
Right, so I was actually doing it before the army, but I went to the army because it was mandatory service, because I have a Finnish passport.
Yeah.
I was born there, so I went back to do 6 months, which is the mandatory amount, and then I stayed for another 6 months extra just because I enjoyed it so much, and it was a really nice time. It was probably some of the best moments I've ever had. But yeah, it taught me a lot.
Were you tempted to stay there?
Maybe a little bit, but I missed my creative side.
Of course.
Because I felt like I had no purpose, even though I had you know, my own company and my own, you know, squad and whatnot. But I just felt like I get purpose from creating.
Yeah.
And it's just so much more important for me to collaborate with other artists and create work and put it out there.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Oh, it really is. It's so interesting. You threw me there when you said you were in the army. I was like, oh wow, that's such a transition.
Yeah. No. It was something mandatory then that just became something that I enjoyed.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Yeah. It is really inspiring. And so for anyone watching that thinks, okay, this guy sounds cool, what he does sounds amazing, I want to see if I can do it, get into it. What would you recommend? What's the kind of process that they should start with?
Well, obviously, because the internet is so massive and there's so much information going on there, there's a lot of people that curate tutorials and just teach. There's dedicated schools online that are very, very good for motion design, because there's not a lot of motion design courses in university. So there's stuff like School of Motion is a very big one, and they put up podcasts explaining how to get into the freelance world. Motion Hatch, Ben Marriott. Those are all things that you can kind of look up and learn from. And there's just so much to be inspired by out there, on Instagram, on Twitter, on just Behance or anything. So yeah, if you can find some artists that you can connect with. I mean, for me, it was J.R. Canist, Romain Lubasanis, and kind of studios, Ordinary Folk, Oddfellows. So these studios that will inspire you and make you kind of create better work. Definitely look that up and might get into it.
Really good for people to know that, definitely. And I'm just sitting here thinking, you know, as you're talking, what you do must take so much time and energy, and it's a whole process. And in a world that we live in where you just want everything automatically, how have you found that? Like, to me, I think I just wouldn't have the patience. Right. Something that takes a lot of patience. So what's your process? Have you got a particular process that works for you?
Well, thankfully, I don't animate frame by frame, so I don't draw every single frame. So my heart goes out to anyone who's a cell animator or animates frame by frame. But yeah, I use After Effects, so I use keyframes, so it's a lot easier and quicker. But still, it's the creative process and kind of understanding what the client wants. Yeah. Because if you don't understand it at the start and you start creating something that's time consuming, then they want something changed by the end. Then you're just going to be like, okay, well, now I have to start over. And I spent like 2 weeks on that thing. But yeah, the process is just to be prepared. Make sure that you know what the pre-production is, and you've got an animatic, you've got the style frames and illustrations done before you animate anything. Because if you just jump into animation, you're going to probably change something or you won't have any direction. But if you've planned it all out and it's 100% not going to change, then you're going to be completely fine.
Yeah, it's good to know. And I think as well, even though your work can be done remotely, so for example, in the pandemic, it's not really affected your work, you must still have to be a people person. You must still have to know how to speak to a client, understand a client, and work out what it is the client wants, even if the client doesn't necessarily know what it is that they want. How do you approach that? Well,
I guess with a creative mindset, because the client will come to you with a certain idea usually, and you know that helps, and you kind of just develop on their brand guidelines and what they want to show the world. And by the time that you've done it, like, you know, 15 times, 20 times, then it just gets easier to understand what the client wants and how to speak to them. But Yeah, I think yeah, you do need to be social, and that's why I think collaboration with other artists is very important, because as much as motion designers are generalists, they're also specialists. So you'll have someone who will do 3D, you'll have someone who will do illustration for motion, and then it's good because I specifically animate. So I'll collaborate with someone who will illustrate, and then I will do the motion side. So it makes the process so much easier, and it's so much more fun to just collaborate with other artists.
Yeah, I bet it is.
Yeah.
You've got like your network around you as
Yeah,
well.
absolutely. Yeah, networks are so important.
Yeah, and how do people go about that then, in the sense of, I mean, I suppose for me, my career is within the creative industry, but in performance. So a little bit different to yours, but again, networking is so important there. Is it the same process, networking-wise, or is it more of a sort of online thing?
Okay, yeah, well, at the moment, obviously online, but you get like events that you can go to. I don't really like events. There's a lot of pressure of people that will come up to you and talk to you only for the reason of kind of introducing their work to you. And I kind of like the more informal side, where you're just interacting with people online. Someone will post something on Instagram or Twitter, and you'll reply, okay, hey, that's a really cool artwork. Like, I'm super inspired. Or you'll message them and be like, hey, that's really cool. And for anyone that wants to kind of connect with studios or other freelancers, you can honestly just email them and just be like, hey, I really like your like recent thing you put out, recent show reel or artwork. But yeah, for collaboration and connecting with people, I run a little thing called Time Frame, where I set up a brief once a week, which is like time constrained. So obviously, like you said, it's a thing that takes a long time to do, animation, but we try and do it under time constraints to make it a little bit more stressful and a little bit more fun. Yeah. So for example, last week I asked some people to send their logos in, and then we went live on a Friday, and I said, okay, 1 hour to animate one of these logos. And then we did it live on Twitch, and we all animated it in 1 hour. And it was very stressful, but it's very fun. Yeah. And then we upload that online on Time Frame Motion. So it's a very fun kind of experience. And
it sounds fun, but it sounds something that would stress me out so much.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm somebody that I would turn on the computer and, you know, if something didn't load straight away or whatever, I'd just be like, oh, for goodness sake, this stupid thing doesn't work.
But the thing is, right, so in the army, what I learned most was you're kind of feeding off other people's struggles in a way where, like, you know that you're not going through that thing alone, you're with other people. Yeah. So, like, doing that online and doing it live with, like, 30 plus people, and then you're all animating the same thing, going through like the same struggle, and it's just such a lovely thing to share. Like you're creating this, and then by the end you'll have such a nice product and such a nice animation.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, it sounds really exciting. It sounds like a lot of fun, and yeah, very inspiring actually, because you sound really passionate about what you do.
Yeah, it's very fun.
Yeah, and it's so important to have that passion, because it can be very easy to just get consumed in the work itself, in the job itself, and forget that actually this started out as a passion project. Yeah. You did this as a hobby, and if now you can earn money from it, wow, like that's
exactly.
Even better.
And I try to constantly remind myself that, you know, if there's something that I want to do in motion design, I just kind of need to put that out there. I need to create the work for myself and then put it out there, because whatever I create for myself and put it on my website, if a client sees it, they'll think, okay, he can do that thing. So we want him to do that thing. Yeah. So if I want to do a certain thing, I'll put it on my website.
Yeah, good. And just go for it. Put it out there.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I do actually just have one more question for you. And this question I ask everybody, all the people that we've interviewed, and we get a range of different answers back. So if you could go back in time and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh, that's a good question, by the way. I'd probably say to create a network and think about something that kind of, well, actually, I'd say I'd probably completely ignore the whole motion design thing, because I think you need to think about yourself first. Yeah. So you're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days. Just remember to breathe, be kind to yourself, and be patient, because the good things will come to you if you just work on it every day.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's amazing advice, actually, and something that I think we all need to remind ourselves of.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for taking the time to come and talk to us. So interesting.
Thank you.
It
Thank
really
you.
is.
Really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.